Ladies, let me tell you something. A man's silence says more than his words ever will. When he's gone emotionally, the shift doesn't come with a slam of the door or a loud goodbye. It comes in whispers, in the way he pulls away slowly, in the way he stops choosing you daily, in the way he stops seeing you, not because you're invisible, but because his heart has already packed its bags and moved on, long before his body ever does. You know it before you admit it. You feel it before you name it. That ache in your chest when he walks in the room, and you're more alone than when you were actually alone. That's not love dying. That's love gone. What you're holding on to is a ghost. You're hugging the memory, not the man. You're fighting to resuscitate a bond that he's already buried, quietly, respectfully, maybe even lovingly, but buried, all the same. Let me tell you something about emotionally absent men. They don't always leave physically. Sometimes they stay in your bed. They show up to dinner. They text you good morning. But behind their eyes, the light is gone. The warmth, cold. The connection, cut off at the source. You keep pouring into a cup that's leaking from the bottom, and you wonder why nothing fills up anymore. That's because it's not about effort anymore. It's about energy. His energy is not with you. His soul left the room, and now all you have is the shadow of what used to be. You want to know the signs? I'll give them to you. He stops listening, not just hearing, listening. You speak, and the words bounce off the walls. You express, and it feels like throwing paper planes into a storm. You cry, and he blinks. Not because he's cruel, not because he doesn't care, but because he's already detached. His emotional oxygen line to you has been cut, and now you're suffocating in a space that used to breathe love. He stops touching you like he used to. You know the difference. There's touch, and then there's presence. You can tell when a man touches you with his hands and not his heart, when his kisses are routine, not passion, when his hugs are polite, not protective, when intimacy becomes mechanical, a duty, not a desire, baby. He's gone. You can't fake affection for long. The body remembers, but the soul doesn't lie. He stops asking questions. A man who loves you deeply wants to know how your day was. Not just out of courtesy, but out of craving. He wants to dive into your world. He wants access to your thoughts, your worries, your wins. But when he's checked out, those questions stop. The curiosity dies. He no longer sees you as a story he's desperate to read. He sees you as a chapter he's already skimmed through. And maybe, just maybe, he's closing the book altogether. He gets easily irritated. The same woman who once made his face light up now seems to get on his nerves. Everything becomes a problem. You ask a question, he snaps. You make a suggestion, he sighs. You express your needs, he shuts down. That's not always you being too much. Sometimes it's just him being somewhere else mentally, and your presence reminds him of the emotional labor he no longer wants to do. He becomes silent in the spaces where there used to be laughter. Remember the inside jokes, the deep talks at 2 a.m., the playful banter? Gone. Replaced by tension, replaced by scrolling phones, replaced by silence so loud you can hear your heart breaking in it. That silence is not just awkward, it's intentional. It's a retreat. It's a sign that he's no longer invested in building with you. He's just occupying space. He stops showing up not for occasions, but for you, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. The big events still get a nod. Sure, birthdays, holidays, maybe even your anniversary. But the daily moments, the small celebrations, the little things that matter to you, he's absent. He doesn't see them. He doesn't see you. Because when a man checks out, the first thing he stops noticing is the beauty in you. He wants worship. But here's the truth, sis. You already knew. You just didn't want to believe it. You told yourself he's tired. You told yourself he's stressed. You told yourself it's a phase. But deep down you knew. You knew when he stopped fighting for you. You knew when you became the only one reaching, the only one hoping, the only one holding the relationship on life support. Love shouldn't feel like begging. Attention shouldn't feel like a negotiation. And affection shouldn't feel like a reward. When you have to constantly ask a man to love you, respect you, prioritize you, baby, that's not love. That's a contract you didn't sign up for. But listen to me. You don't have to beg a man to stay who truly wants to be there. A man in love doesn't get lazy with you. He doesn't get comfortable with hurting you. He doesn't make excuses for his absence. A man in love gets better, not distant. He grows toward you, not away from you. He leans in when times get hard, not out. Now here's where you rise. Here's where you wake up. Stop performing for a man who's not watching. Stop dressing up pain and patience and calling it love. Stop shrinking yourself so he doesn't feel uncomfortable. And stop rewriting your worth based on his attention span. Your value didn't drop because his eyes wandered. Your glow didn't dim because his focus shifted. He left, but your light remains. And I know walking away is hard. Letting go is hard. Accepting that the man you once dreamed of now lives in memories is hard. But staying in a one-sided love is harder. Holding on to dead weight is heavier. Losing yourself in the process of trying to keep him is a cost you cannot afford. Sis, you deserve to be loved loudly, deeply, consistently. You deserve a love that doesn't flinch when life gets messy. A man who holds your hand through the storm, not just the sunshine. Someone who listens even when you're silent, who sees you even when you're breaking, who chooses you every single day, not out of obligation but desire. And if he's gone emotionally, then bless him as he leaves. Mourn what was, grieve what could have been. But don't you ever chase after what has already walked away. You are not a question mark. You are not an afterthought. You are not somebody's fallback plan. You are the dream, the prayer, the answered call. And if he couldn't see that, let him go blind elsewhere. Because the moment you stop trying to resuscitate what's dead is the moment you start breathing again. Ladies, let me say this to your soul. Peace is more valuable than presence. Don't trade your peace for a placeholder. Don't confuse time spent with depth felt. 10 years of silence is not worth 10 minutes of real raw love. Choose depth. Choose real. Choose you. When he's gone emotionally, you'll feel the cold even when the bed is warm. You'll sense the absence even when the schedule looks full. But more importantly, you'll know because your heart always knows. The trick is not in knowing. The trick is in having the courage to act on what you already feel. You don't need closure. You need clarity. And you just got it. Now go heal. Go shine. Go rise. Because your heart is too big for someone who doesn't know how to hold it. And your soul, it was never meant to shrink just to keep a man comfortable. When a man disconnects emotionally, it's not an accident. It's a choice. It may not be loud, but it's intentional. And if you're honest with yourself, you've already adjusted to it. You stopped expecting that text back. You stopped planning things with him in mind. You've made excuses for his behavior in front of your friends. You've protected his absence from your own family. You've defended him so much that you're starting to lose your own voice in the process. That's not love. That's survival in a relationship that's already expired. You deserve more than survival. You deserve revival. You deserve to be in a connection that breathes life into you, not one that drains you to the point of emotional silence. Some of you are running on fumes trying to keep a man interested when the truth is he's already checked out. He's not fighting. He's not present. He's not available. And the most painful part is that you're still showing up fully, hoping that if you give more love harder, stay quieter, he'll return. But listen, you're not a rehab center for emotionally unavailable men. You're not the bridge he crosses to get to his healing. You are not a pit stop on his journey to self-awareness. If he couldn't recognize the value of your heart, your soul, your presence, that's his loss to carry, not your weight to bear. You've got to stop making broken men your project. You've got to stop seeing their wounds as invitations. A man who is gone emotionally will leave you starving in a house that used to feed your spirit. He'll make you question your worth while still expecting your loyalty. That's not love, that's emotional starvation dressed up in routine. Let me make something clear. A man who wants you chooses you in private and in public. A man who values you doesn't shrink from you. He steps up, he leads, he holds space for your dreams, your flaws, your power. He's not threatened by your strength, he's fueled by it. And if that's not what you're receiving, then baby, you're in the wrong connection. Stop romanticizing potential. Stop falling in love with the version of him you built in your head. Pay attention to who he is, not who he could be, because potential doesn't pay emotional rent. It doesn't show up in your darkest hour. It doesn't build a life with you. What you see is what you have. And if what you see is distance, disinterest, detachment, then that's the truth. And truth, no matter how painful, will always set you free when you stop trying to edit it. I need you to remember this. Love doesn't require translation. You won't have to decode a man who's emotionally invested in you. You won't have to explain your needs 10 different ways. You won't feel like you're begging for crumbs when love is served in full meals. When a man is present with you emotionally, you feel it. You feel safe. You feel chosen. You feel seen. But when he's gone, you start talking to yourself in a room that once held laughter. You start rehearsing how to ask for affection without sounding needy. You start reading old messages just to remember what it felt like to be prioritized. That's not love. That's grief in disguise. Grief for a man who hasn't left but is no longer with you. Grief for the future you picture. Grief for the someday you kept fighting for. Even when the right now was full of silence and disappointment. Let that grief do its work. Let it burn what needs to go. Let it strip the illusion so you can finally see yourself clearly, powerful, worthy, whole. Don't let fear make you stay where your soul is dying. Don't let history trap you in misery. It doesn't matter how many birthdays you've shared. It doesn't matter how long you've been loyal. Time is not proof of love. Presence is. Let him go emotionally because he already did. And more importantly, call yourself back. Call back your joy. Call back your voice. Call back your intuition. Call back every piece of you that went missing while you were busy trying to be everything to a man who couldn't even be honest with you. The minute you stop waiting on him to choose you is the minute you choose yourself. And that's where your life begins again. You keep thinking that if you just hang on a little longer, maybe he'll come back emotionally. Maybe one day he'll look at you the way he used to. Maybe the man who used to light up when you walked in the room will suddenly return and pull you back into that space where love felt alive. But here's the raw truth most people don't want to hear. Sometimes he's not coming back, not because he doesn't know how to, but because he doesn't want to. And holding on to that hope is like clinging to smoke. No matter how tightly you grip it, it slips right through your fingers. You keep trying to prove your worth to someone who's not even looking anymore. You change your head, you soften your tone, you downplay your needs so you don't sound too demanding. You swallow your pain to keep the peace. And slowly, without realizing it, you disappear in the process. That's what emotional abandonment does. It doesn't happen in a single moment. It's gradual. It's quiet. It's slow erasure. One unspoken need at a time. When a man has checked out, you become an obligation, not a priority. He shows up out of guilt, not love. He does the bare minimum to avoid confrontation, not because he's invested, and you feel that. Don't ignore the knowing. Your spirit always alerts you when someone's presence is no longer real. Your peace becomes unsettled. Your joy feels forced. And suddenly you're looking at the man you used to adore and wondering how a stranger got into his skin. But here's where you rise, not just in anger, in clarity. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you name it, you can stop blaming yourself for it. And once you stop chasing it, you can finally breathe again. You don't need to audition for love. You don't need to earn basic respect. You don't need to prove that you're worthy of consistency, communication, or care. The right man offers those things freely, consistently, joyfully, without pressure. You don't heal by convincing someone to stay. You heal by giving yourself permission to leave, not out of revenge, not out of rage, but out of respect for the woman you've been silencing just to keep the illusion of us alive. Stop dimming your fire to keep him from walking out the door. If he's uncomfortable with your light, let him leave. You were not born to be edited down to a version he can handle. You were born to be felt deeply, powerfully, unapologetically. And if he's no longer willing to receive that, then it's time to protect it from him. Don't confuse chemistry with connection. Passion might have started the relationship, but presence sustains it. A man can desire your body and still neglect your soul. A man can be physically close and emotionally continents away. That's why so many of you feel alone, even when he's lying right next to you, because proximity is not intimacy. And time spent is not the same as time invested. Look at how your needs have changed since he pulled away. You used to dream, now you're just surviving. You used to laugh from your belly, now you smile just to make it through the day. You used to feel like a woman, now you feel like a burden. That's not your fault. That's the weight of emotional neglect. And if you keep internalizing it, it will crush your spirit. Let go of the guilt. Let go of the shame. Let go of the belief that staying longer makes you stronger. Strength isn't in enduring suffering. It's in knowing when to walk away with your dignity still intact. You are not hard to love. You are not too much. You are not a problem to be fixed. You are a force. You are fire. You are a gift. And just because he failed to unwrap that gift doesn't mean it loses value. It just means he wasn't the one meant to hold it. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away from someone who made you forget how beautiful it feels to be seen. Sometimes closure isn't about getting answers. It's about giving yourself permission to stop asking the same question, why wasn't I enough? Baby, you were enough. You just gave it to the wrong person. And let me tell you something real. One day you'll wake up and not miss him anymore. Not because he changed, but because you did. You'll look back and realize that what felt like the end was actually your beginning. You'll laugh louder, love harder, trust yourself more. And when the right man enters your life, you won't have to fight for a place in his heart. He'll carve one out for you and guard it with his life. But first, you have to do the hard thing. You have to stop romanticizing a connection that no longer exists. You have to stop blaming yourself for someone else's emotional absence. You have to stop waiting on a man to return to a version of himself that only lives in your memories. He's not the same, and neither are you. And that's okay. Now breathe. Let it fall apart so something stronger can rise. Let the silence teach you what noise kept you from hearing, your own voice, your own intuition, your own truth. You're not losing him. You're returning to you. You're returning to the version of yourself that didn't need to beg to be heard. The version that didn't apologize for feeling too deeply. The woman you were before you made his comfort more important than your clarity. That woman, she's not gone. She's just been quiet. Waiting, watching, patiently hoping you'd stop shrinking for someone who no longer shows up. And now she's waking up, because at some point the numbness turns to fire. The ache turns into anger, not the destructive kind, but the kind that says no more. No more silencing your voice so he doesn't feel challenged. No more biting your tongue just to avoid another one of his cold defensive shutdowns. No more walking on eggshells to protect a man who won't even offer you the shelter of emotional safety. You can't fix a relationship by bleeding in silence. Love is not self-abandonment. And you can't heal in the same environment that broke your spirit. If he's gone emotionally and you're still there physically, it's time to ask yourself, what are you really holding on to? The relationship or the version of yourself that believed it would always feel like the beginning, because beginnings are beautiful. They're full of promise and passion and potential. But what keeps love alive isn't just the spark, it's the presence, the effort, the choice to keep showing up long after the butterflies settle. And when he stops choosing you, day after day, moment after moment, that's not just a shift, that's a message. He's telling you in his silence, in his withdrawal, in his absence, that his heart has exited the relationship, even if his body hasn't followed yet. That's what makes emotional detachment so painful. It's not clean. It's not final. It lingers. It confuses you. It leaves you wondering if maybe you're imagining things, but you're not. You just got used to reading between the lines because the sentences stopped making sense. You deserve more than code breaking. You deserve clarity. And no, this isn't about walking away at the first sign of trouble. This is about knowing the difference between challenges that build a relationship and patterns that slowly destroy your soul. It's about recognizing when staying becomes a form of self-betrayal. Because if you're the only one doing the emotional labor, initiating the conversations, asking the hard questions, creating the space for healing, that's not partnership, that's performance. That's you writing every chapter while he doesn't even bother turning the page. And you keep wondering why you're exhausted. You're not asking for too much. You're just asking the wrong man. You're trying to draw water from a dry well. You are craving depth from someone who only knows how to live on the surface. That's why you feel so alone in his presence. That's why you keep questioning your worth every time he turns away from the version of you that is begging to be loved properly. But here's the hard truth. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. And if you keep showing up for someone who doesn't show up for you, that becomes the blueprint. That becomes the standard. And over time, it chips away at the part of you that once believed in more. But here's where you reclaim that part. Not through confrontation, not through dramatic exits, but through alignment, through stillness, through the decision to choose yourself without apology. Because your healing doesn't begin when he finally sees your worth. It begins the moment you stop handing it out like a discount to someone who never paid full price. You are not meant to be endured. You are meant to be celebrated. You are not a duty. You are a desire. And if he treats you like background noise in the story of his life, then it's time to become the main character in your own. Take off the emotional band-aids. Stop patching up holes with maybe tomorrow he'll change. Because you've been living in emotional winter waiting on a spring that never arrives. And every time you hope for more and get less, a part of you starts to accept that this is just how it is. But this isn't love. This is quiet suffering. And that's not your portion. Your portion is love that sees you, hears you, holds you. Love that mirrors the energy you give, not love that makes you beg for scraps at a table you help build. Your portion is partnership, not punishment. Sacred union, not silent roommates. Your portion is being chosen in the full light of day, not just when it's convenient or when he feels like performing affection. And yes, walking away is terrifying. Letting go feels like failure. But what if the real failure is staying in something that keeps breaking you down bit by bit? What if healing is in the leaving? What if the closure you've been waiting for won't come from his words, but from your own decision to say enough? Sometimes we don't get the apology. We don't get the explanation. We don't get the moment where he suddenly wakes up and becomes everything you needed. And that's okay, because you don't need permission to heal. You don't need his validation to move forward. You don't need his recognition to reclaim your joy. You just need you. And let me tell you, the day you stop waiting for him to feel, to show up, to love you the way you deserve, is the day everything begins to shift. The fog clears, the ache softens, and little by little, you start hearing your own voice again. Not the voice that pleads, not the voice that doubts, but the voice that says, I remember who I am. And when that voice rises, so do you. You rise in your self-worth, in your boundaries, in your joy. You rise above the disappointment, You rise past the delay. You rise into the woman who no longer needs to be chosen to feel whole because you were never waiting on him.